and welcome to Songkla Rajabhat University's MOOC course on English for the Workplace. I'm Gary Linton, and today I'll talk to you about preparing a CV or resume. In today's video, we'll look at what is a CV or a resume and portfolio, some of the terms you'll come across. They're really very similar, but there are some slight differences. So we'll look at what the content should be, things to include and leave out. We're also then going to take a look at understanding job adverts. This is where you'll find most of the information you need to prepare your CV. And we'll look at different ways you can write about your skills and abilities. So let's get started by looking at what is a CV, resume or portfolio. So the CV, that is used primarily in the United Kingdom and across a lot of Europe. It's a Latin term for course of life. Really, it's a summary, 2 pages, possibly more, and it's a complete history of everything you've done in your life. Normally, we put it in reverse time order. We start with the most recent and go back through time. And as mentioned, it's used in Europe, the UK and New Zealand. A resume, and you'll see there's 3 different spellings here at the top. The little accent, acute accents above the E. The first version is the most common, and that's the one that we normally use. So this word resume, with the 2 acute accents above it, is the most common spelling, although the others can be used. We leave the accents on really to make sure people don't confuse it with the word resume. It's a French word for a summary, and as a summary, it's usually kept to 1 page. And it's just used to highlight relevant skills and experience. So unlike a CV, we don't necessarily include a full history of everything, but we do want to include anything relevant to the job. Generally speaking, a resume has a slightly more flexible structure, and it's commonly used in the United States and Canada. You'll find that both terms are used internationally and often interchangeably, but it's important to check wherever you're applying for the job. Make sure you provide exactly what they're looking for. You'll often come across another term, portfolio, people mention relating to applying for jobs. That's really something that we use in support of our resume or CV. It would be something to show examples of your work. So maybe more if you're an artist or designer and you'd have examples of pictures of your work, things like that. So we will hear these terms when you apply for jobs, but really you're most likely to be asked for a CV or a resume. Let's take a look at the content. So, what goes in your first CV or resume? As you can see from the lists here on screen, they're very similar. Both have contact information. Obviously, an employer needs to get in touch. Depending on the country, that might be different information. We want at the very least to provide your name, a contact phone number, probably email address, but you may have other things like social media information there. We want some kind of objective or personal statement. This is where we would tell the employer about ourselves, a chance to set yourself apart, what you're looking for from your career or the purpose of your resume, or what you're trying to achieve. We always show something about our education and our work experience. We could also within that include any sort of voluntary work or things like that we've done during our time at university, for example. And we may also include skills as a section to show the abilities we have. But really, these are a flexible document. You can add lots of other things. any professional qualifications if you've been in business for a while. You might add languages or any additional training outside of traditional school and university. Hobbies, interests, things like that can be added depending on the job you're applying for and how much experience you have. The more job experience you have, the less we need to talk about other interests. So, one of the first things we want to do when we think about preparing our CV is make sure we understand what the job requires. Here we have an actual job advertisement that I found online for a front desk receptionist. And we're going to take a look at where and what some of the key information on the advert is and how that can help you prepare your CV. So, first of all, we have the heading, the introduction. This gives you some basic information. The job title, front desk receptionist. It also tells you where it happens. It's going to be in Minneapolis. In this case, they're offering part-time or full-time positions, Monday to Saturday. So we know we don't have to work on a Sunday. And the job has flexible hours. Now, what that tells you is that you won't always be doing the same hours. For example, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You maybe start later or finish later, depending on the day. So we need to mention that we're flexible. We're able to work within flexible hours. And we want to be clear, are we looking for something part-time or are we looking for a full-time position? So your CV needs to be prepared to address those points. And to help you understand, they're offering a salary, DOE. If you're not sure what these acronyms mean, you can look them up. In this case, it's dependent on experience. So you'll often find something like that. DOE depends on experience, how qualified you are for the job. Your salary may be higher. And bonuses, so extra money, extra payments if things go well. So there's a few things in there we want to make sure our cover letter and CV are clear about. That we are able to work flexible hours and make it clear if we want part or full-time positions. Now, the most important part of the job advert here is that it will show you the responsibilities and duties. These are the things that the employer expects you to do. It also tells you the qualifications and skills that are required to do the job in their opinion. There's a lot of overlap between these, but by going through them and reading between the lines, we can identify the important words and language you need to put in your CV and make sure you tell them you have all of these skills and abilities. So let's go through this particular advert. The responsibilities, what you're expected to do. Greet and check clients in, out for appointments. That means you have to be welcoming and friendly, confident when you speak to customers. Assist the massage therapist and esthetician. In the United Kingdom, we would say a beauty therapist rather than esthetician, but make sure you understand the people that you would be helping. This particular part tells me that in my CV, I want to show that I can work as part of a team. I'm assisting other members of staff. I need to show that I work well with others and I can assist and help my colleagues. Answer phones, schedule appointments. Now, if you're answering phones and scheduling things, you have to be organized. So we want to make sure we show a history of being organized and coordinated in our CV. Manage daily closeouts and banking deposits. So you need to be responsible, trustworthy, and good with money and counting. Order supplies. Again, we want to be organised and maintaining cleanliness of spa general office duties. These are very general, where we want to show just our flexibility and ability to multitask, where you can manage your own time and be responsible for getting the job done without too much supervision. The qualifications they state: competent in basic math. You have to be able to count. Usually just showing that through having completed high school, grades for mathematics or something. But any experience where you've worked with numbers in the past is useful to highlight. Detail oriented. This is where we pay attention to important information and anything in your history that can show where we don't make mistakes. We want to ensure everything is done properly, and as you're going to be responsible for ordering supplies, scheduling appointments and banking, it's important to show that you can do that without making errors. Great customer service while professional. So we want to be able to show our people skills here, that you can be friendly, welcoming and professional. And if there's anything in your history of working in an environment like that, it will be useful. Now, you see we have basic skills in Microsoft Word and Excel. This is specific applications that they'll be expecting you to use as part of your duties. So in your CV, you have to be clear that you can use both of these applications. And it's worth mentioning them specifically. And finally, they have reliable transportation. This means you're responsible for being there on time and getting home. If you're responsible to open or close the business, make sure people can get in, then you need to be able to show that you will not have a problem showing up for work. It's also worth noting that training will be provided. So anywhere, if you feel that there may be a little area you need to work on, then you can comment in your CV about, you'll learn from the experience. Their training will help you. The final part of the advert are the contact details. And this is where they tell us how to get in touch and how to apply for the job. So to apply, those words tell you the method for applying. You have options. Call to set up an interview. So you can call them and the telephone numbers provided, the name of the person you're looking to speak to be, or email your resume. So in this case, they're looking for a resume as it's North America, and an email address to send it to. They also provide a physical address for the premises. Now, in my case, if I were looking for a job like this, I would search that address, find out about local transport and the businesses around it, and I would make a point of doing both. I would email my resume, but I would also call to speak to B. I always find it's a useful thing to make personal contact. The fact that the person you're contacting is B suggests that it's a small business, reasonably friendly and local, rather than contact personnel office. So you're looking at something that's going to be reasonably personal and friendly, and a call would give it a personal touch and allows you to sell yourself over the phone and let them know to expect your resume by email. So there's lots of good information in the advert, and you need to show all of that in your CV when you write it. So we want to make sure we match our skills to the job. When you write your CV or your resume, it's important that you stand out. Some companies will receive thousands of documents, thousands of applications for a small number of jobs. So they have to go through those applications very quickly. Anyone that doesn't clearly meet the requirements will be put aside. We need to think about what we want our CV to look like. There's lots of resources available to help you with that. Advice about the contents and do's and don'ts, along with templates to help you build the CV, and lists of buzzwords, things that are popular with recruitment consultants and employers at the moment to help highlight your skills. So it's worth spending time researching to prepare a good CV. A good layout will catch their attention, and there's lots of different options you'll see out there. One option is a fairly traditional, some may say nowadays old-fashioned. This style is common in things like finance and banking, public sector jobs with the government, and it's fairly simple and clean. You'll notice in this case there's no photographs or pictures or graphs. Simply contact information at the top, a personal summary, a statement, skills, experience and education. And they've highlighted computer skills in this case specifically to show off some extra information. But it's very simple and clean. There's a more modern style, which again you may find more common in jobs like IT, computer programmers, sales, marketing, things like that, where it uses a little more colour, like the example here. We have a little more colour, a photograph of the person. If you're going to be frontline sales or marketing, then that can be useful to let people see. And you see they've gone with slightly more graphical interface for their skills and abilities, and also included a few icons and images related to their past experience. So it's a little more colourful, a little more eye-catching, and still contains the same basic information. Contact details at the top, a summary, professional experience, and education with skills and the technical skills. So we have the same information, just a different layout. And the final is a slightly more creative style of CV. These are becoming increasingly popular, and we can see the example here. Again, the basic idea is very similar. Contact details at the top, a profile summary, professional experience. But as you'll see, they've used a lot more creative elements, infographics and tables and charts, as well as a slightly more modern QR code that the employer can scan to find the person. Whatever style you choose, it should reflect yourself and be suitable to the job. So it's really important to do some research into what people are looking for. When it comes to writing, look at the adverts closely and make sure you use the keywords they want. If they say they're looking for detail-oriented people, tell them that you are detail-oriented. We want to make sure our CV or resume takes away the work from the employer. They don't need to think, does he mean detail-oriented? Just tell them you are what they want. So in the example, our job advert said we want Word and Excel. So don't just say you have excellent computer skills. Do say experienced using Word and Excel. Be specific and oversell the points. So go through the advert, highlight the keywords that you need to include in your CV, and make sure you include them all. It is important when you're writing to focus on the different skills and abilities. There are two main areas that we tend to focus on. Hard skills, these are the things that we learn about in our jobs. Becoming a teacher, we study and learn about teaching methodology. If you're a computer programmer, you learn how to program in Linux or C++, data analysis, your languages, so things we've physically learned, and a set of examples. The other side is the soft skills. These are our interpersonal traits and our abilities. So this is what you're like as a person. You're flexible and communicative. So effective communication, you're open-minded, you work well as a team member, you've got problem solving or critical thinking ability. These are soft skills. And you want to show a balance of these. We have the technical knowledge, but also the nature and the personality that the company will be looking for. So it's vital to find these in the advert and choose the important ones for the employer. You don't want to list everything, it's too much, so we find the most important things for the job. And we've seen some examples of that from one of the previous videos. It's also important, as we talk about our previous experience, to try and use the right tense. Simple mistakes in your language show a lack of attention to detail. Poor spelling or misusing words will have you discounted from a job. So if you're talking about a previous job, we use the past tense. I analysed statistics for sales over the past 3 months. If it's your current job, we use the present tense. I analyse the data on a daily basis. So use the right tense to talk about each of the jobs. Here are some examples of words we may use. We analyse, we deliver, develop, establish, exceed, implement, increase, present, supervise, train. There are hundreds of terms that we can use to describe things as part of our jobs, but make sure you think carefully about which ones you want to use. It is important to sell yourself appropriately and use the right tense for what you're saying. Also remember to use the right version of the words. There's always different ways we can say things. In our video today, we're not looking at writing tasks, but remember, if you want to talk about your communication skills, for example, we could say, I communicate effectively. Or we could say, I have excellent communication skills. So we're using a different version of the word, the core word communicate. And we can use them in different ways. Another example, talking about your knowledge. What do you know? For example, I have extensive product knowledge, or I am extremely knowledgeable about the products. I can speak knowledgeably about our full product range. So each of those shows that you have knowledge, but in a different sentence we use a different version of the word. So just be a little careful when you're preparing your CV that you use the language correctly, as mistakes show a lack of attention to detail and problems. Thank you very much for your attention today. We have some questions you can answer. Please do take a look at those before you move on to the next unit.